Today I am bringing you the Ultimate Season of Discovery Warlock Guide. I have approximately 1,300 plus days played on my Warlock across all versions of WoW since 2004, and will be sharing all of my knowledge to help each of you improve and blow out your competition. In Phase 6 AQ, I finished as a #1 Warlock world, and will be pushing for the same in Phase 7 with Nax. Please consider subscribing if you found this guide helpful. Let's get right into it. The first thing I want to go over is Consumables. In Classic WoW, Consumables provide huge bonuses to each class. On the screen now are the mandatory consumables that will significantly increase your damage output and are a must in every raid setting. I'm also placing optional consumables on the screen that are more for the min-maxers and people looking for that extra edge. These optional consumables will provide a DPS increase but may cost you some more time to get ready or gold to invest. I recommend using the mandatory ones at all times, and all of them if you are really trying to push your Warlock's limits. Next, I want to jump straight into Enchants. On the screen now are the Enchants you will need to use. Enchants in Season of Discovery also provide very valuable bonuses, as just from having all of your enchants, you can increase your spell power by up to 169, as well as gain some stamina, 2% hit, and 1% crit. Before I get into your specific rotation, how the spec plays, the best in slot, and the pre-raid bis for your class, one very important thing we need to go over is snapshotting. Some of you may know what snapshotting is, some of you may not. In basic, the best way I can explain it is in classic WoW, stuff like your dots, they snapshot the current value that your gear bonuses give you. For example, this trinket on use increases your critical strike chance by 10%, increases your pet's attack speed by 50% for 20 seconds. So if I were to apply UA to this target right now, and then I use this trinket, it does not snapshot this trinket, meaning that it will not increase this UA's critical strike chance, therefore it will not increase the damage that this UA is doing. If I cast an ability after or during the trinket proc, it will take that critical strike chance into effect and therefore increase that dot's output. One important thing to note as well, there's a rune, Shadow and Flame. When you critical strike, it'll increase your damage by 10% for 10 seconds. Ideally, throughout the fight, this is constantly proccing. You're keeping this up 99% of the time, really, because you have so many dots rolling, therefore you're going to have crits left and right. If you apply a dot without this bonus active, it's not going to increase that dot's damage by 10%. If you get a crit, which I'll try to fish for a proc real quick. There, I have my Weakauras popping up telling me I got it. And I reapply a dot, it will apply that dot with that 10% increased damage bonus. The only ability that I can think of that doesn't snapshot in Classic WoW would be Haunt. As you see by the tooltip, Haunt increases all shadow damage over time you deal to that target by 40% for 15 seconds. If I put my entire slate of dots on the target and I were to Haunt afterwards, they would all still be applied or have that 40% extra damage taken. You can basically put it before or after, and either way you will get the effect from it. In short, snapshotting is a very core way to increase our damage. When you have spell power procs, damage increase procs, modifiers, crit percent proc modifiers, if you know how to use that to your advantage, your output is going to significantly increase. We'll talk about that more in the rotation section later. Next, I want to go over the runes you need to run, whether it's single target or cleave, and depending on the current set pieces that you have. I will also share the macros I use with you that will basically turn your imp into a machine gun imp and make it do significantly more damage. And lastly, I will share my Weakauras, which you see on the screen right now. It's just a dot tracker and trinket tracker, as well as gives you some reminders if you don't have a pet out, if you don't have it sacked, etc. I will have this pinned down in the description. Starting off with our runes, for single target, without the 4-piece tier 3, this is going to be the build that you're running. Haunt, Shadowflame, Demonic Pact, Shadow and Flame. You definitely want Shadow specialization. You don't need Fire. You can run the MP5 one instead, the meditation specialization, but really doesn't matter if you have a Shadow Priest in your group or a Ret. Obviously Pandemic, Soul Siphon, and Master Chandler. Now you need to run Mark of Chaos on your back. If you do not have another Warlock running this in your raid, it is a must. On the bright side, once you get 4-piece tier 3, crit becomes much more valuable, and for single target you will be switching Master Chandler to Demonic Tactics, and in that case, you can go ahead and run Mark of Chaos anyways. For tier 3 4-piece, make sure critical strikes cause your active dots to essentially deal another pulse of their damage on the target. So crit becomes very valuable and your rotation changes a little bit, essentially making you spam Shadowflame opposed to Shadowbolt, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. In Cleave, it's pretty straightforward as well. You replace Master Chandler with Demonic Tactics. You'll run Mark of Chaos, like mentioned before, and then you will switch your Haunt to Shadowbolt Volley. By Cleave, I mean anything where your raid doesn't need you straight single target to prio kill a mob, and there's more than 3 active targets available. Other than that, all the other runes stay the same. I'm not a big fan of using a ton of macros. I really only bind this specific macro to all of my abilities, like my dots, my Shadowflame, my Shadowbolt, any type of my filler abilities. This macro just turns your imp into a machine gun and gets rid of the like GCD or the pause from it after it casts a Firebolt. So you'll get a lot more Firebolts off throughout the fight if you're using this specific macro, which again, I'll have linked down in the description. Next, I want to jump into what your gearing looks like. This is going to be your pre-bis gear for Nax, and you're also going to be running the Affliction Talents, which I will show on screen shortly. First week, a lot of Warlocks were running the Demonic Sacrifice MD build because there was a bug where you could sack your Incubus and use your Succubus and get double benefit from your MD and sack. I just wanted to mention that as I may have some questions there, but that no longer works. So this is going to be your best setup talent build-wise and pre-bis gear-wise going into Nax. And now we're going to take a look at what the actual best in slot gear is for this phase. You're going to notice there's quite a few changes. The shoulder rune change to the Ritualist, and the Demonic Tactics and Mark of Chaos are on our back and chest piece. You'll also change up your rotation a bit and your talents. As soon as you get 4-piece, you will change the shoulder rune, the back rune, and the chest rune, as well as your rotation. I'll show the talents now that you'll want to switch to. One honorable mention I want to give is instead of running Eye, you can run the Trinket from Saffron. It's very close. Eye is technically simming better right now. It's a little hard to believe, but with that 4-piece, the crit percentage is just becomes so valuable to Aff. The more crits you do, the more pulses you get out of your dots, and obviously your damage shoots way up at that point. All right, boys, we're going to move right into the rotation here. I'm going to go over the rotation for your pre-bis build and your Aff spec, your rotation once we get bis or the 4-piece, going the Destro spec, and then we'll also talk about what your Cleave rotation looks like. So first on screen here, we have our Aff spec rotation. You're going to amplify Curse about 5 seconds before the pull. Start your pull off with the Shadowflame into a Haunt. Now, a lot of other Warlocks open a bit different. The reason I open like this is we talked about snapshotting earlier. You want one of these to crit, so you get that 10% increase damage from your belt rune. So that's why I go for the Shadowflame into the instant Haunt, then UA right into Drain, Agony into Corruption, and then Shadowbolt filler. You reapply your dots last second only if you're going to get near full value out of them, and then you'll drain soul at the very end if you're not going to be able to get another Shadowbolt off. Now, once we receive the tier 3 4-piece or get closer to that bis set for Nax, you're going to change that talent build to Destro like we stated earlier, and then your rotation is going to be as follows. You're going to precast Shadowflame into Agony. You want to get Agony up right away because you're the Mark of Chaos now, and it ramps infinitely with the 6-piece tier 3, so you want to get that dot up right away. Then you'll cast UA into Haunt, Corruption, and then you'll replace the Shadowbolt filler with Shadowflame filler. To fish for more crits, you get more Shadowflame cast throughout a fight than you would with Shadowbolt, and the more crits you get, the more pulses that your dots will do. You're going to reapply your dots at the last second. That's pretty much it. Lastly, for the Cleave spec, which I gotta say, in Nax, there's really not going to be too many fights you'll run this spec, especially as we get towards the end of the phase. You're going to be doing so much damage that probably just going to zerg down bosses. But regardless, if you are doing Cleave more than 3 mobs, you'll Agony the targets if they'll live for more than 30 seconds, or if you are the MOC buffer, you'll UA your primary target, and at that point you're going to spam Shadowbolt, reapply UA if needed, or the Agonies if needed if you don't have the 6-piece, and that's all. And that will conclude the video today. Please drop a like, please subscribe if you found this video helpful at all. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.